Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tech Talks. This week we're going over setting up an orchestral template in SampleTank 4. We're going to be doing that with a bunch of different sound libraries using multis and a couple of different unique ways to do it, as well as creating your own different presets on doing this yourself. So if you want to make a little quartet or something like that, you can use SampleTank 4 sounds, SampleTank 3 sounds, or expand into Miroslav Philharmonic 2, stuff like that. At the end of the episode, we will be giving away SampleTank 4. So that's going to give somebody the opportunity to go back over this and learn everything and kind of just reinforce all their knowledge and use these tools to their fullest extent. So if you guys want to make sure and create an IK Multimedia account right now, that's what you're going to use to enter the giveaway at the very end. That's one lucky winner at the very end of this episode. That's in about 30 minutes. So guys, go ahead and create your account and we'll jump in. The first thing we're going to do here is we're going to start with our audio MIDI setup. Now, if you notice, I pressed Control, comma, but you can also find it under the Edit or the Options section on Windows, and on Mac, you can find it under the Ableton section. So the first thing you want to do is use an ACO set of drivers if you are on the Windows platform. And if you're on Mac, you don't need to worry about that. Just make sure you have the proper audio interface. If you don't have an interface, it will help your performance. So make sure to think about investing into one if you are going to. The Keys IO 25 does have an audio interface built in. So does the 49, which is a great little introduction to get a MIDI controller and an audio interface if you're new into all this stuff. We're going to be using a pretty high buffer today because I am not a keyboard player, and this is just for demonstration purposes. Outside of your audio buffer size, which you could set in your hardware setup, we're going to jump over to our link MIDI and make sure that we have our Keys IO MIDI set to track on. Remember, you only need track on, you don't need sync, that's going to be for MIDI clock, and you don't need remote, that's going to be for all the different play, pause functions in Ableton. So let's go ahead and exit this menu, and we're going to drag SampleTank 4 right over. Notice that's going to be the first step, really, is just grabbing your plugin and throwing it onto a nice MIDI track. In Ableton, it's a MIDI track. In Pro Tools, you can use an aux track for this. You can use an instrument track. There's a bunch of different ways. Essentially, an instrument track is going to be a MIDI track that sends out audio input. So it's MIDI on the input and audio on the output. So let's take a look at SampleTank 4 here. You notice immediately my keys begin to work because the record arm is on. If that is not on, you will not see any movement. Notice I'm also on MIDI channel 1, so any instrument that I load here, that's what's going to play. So if we want to go to, say, Miroslav Philharmonic 2, grab our 11 violins, and just play a C major. All right, sorry, just a C. You'll notice that it's already got signal. Now, if I were to put instruments on these other channels, they will not play because they're on different MIDI channels. Now, a way to cure that is to simply make a MIDI track, and you could do that with Control-Shift-T, or you could right-click. We're going to record arm this track, and we're going to send it over to SampleTank 4, and then we're going to be able to select which track it's on. So 1 is going to be our violin, right? Oops, sorry about that. You're also going to need this guy to be able to react. Sorry, it looks like I was on the wrong MIDI note. So on here, you can change your octave. Remember, if you don't hear sound, look for the gray keys. They do not have active sounds on them. The white do. You can click them, and you'll hear sound, which will help you figure out, is it the MIDI controller? What's going on here? So let's try it one more time. Perfect, right? So we're nice in a C major, and we have an 11 violins selected. Now, what we want to do is really set up a template so we can start writing and getting into stuff more quickly. To do that, what I want to do is we're going to keep this first MIDI track. Let's go ahead and we're going to create a bunch more. In some DAWs, when you load in SampleTank 4, it actually offers you, do you want to make this a multi-timbral instrument? And it create the MIDI tracks for you. Logic Pro X will do this. A bunch of different DAWs will do this. Make sure to select yes, or else it won't, and then you'll have to manually set it up later. So we're going to start with, let's just say, 6 MIDI tracks. I just want 6 different instruments. We're not going to go too crazy here. And we're going to grab the output for all of these, and we're going to send them to SampleTank 4. Once they are in SampleTank 4, you will be able to send them to MIDI track or MIDI channel 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now that'll work for all 16 channels in SampleTank. And let's go ahead and take another look at the interface. Let's load an instrument onto channel 2. Sorry about that. We'll pop this open and let's throw a cello in there. If you're not familiar with the search tool, very useful. I personally love the multis. If you guys aren't familiar with the multis, they are key switch instruments. That's the KS right here. And that's going to show you all of these different articulations here, which you can read more about in this little section. Sustain, detache, all these different things. And it's really cool how you can just switch between them by just pressing the key. So let's go down 2 octaves. Is that a little too low? Let's go up 1 more. Now check this out. Great, so you can see how just quickly I switch between all those different articulations. So what I like to do, and if you notice a lot of the different multi presets in here, they're going to use those multis to allow you to have, say, 5 instruments and switch between a bunch of different articulations without needing an instrument for the soft violins, an instrument for the loud violins, which is another option. You know, you do have all these different, you can see fast, up, fast, slow, and all these different ways to play the instruments with the single instruments, but the multis are just the way for me to go. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is saving this as a template. What you want to do is just save it as a DAW project and save it into a folder called templates. Normally what I'll do is I'll just throw a folder here. Ooh. Sounded like I was angry there. I call that templates. I'll go here. And I'll call this Orchestral 1. Now I could just load this up later. I'm going to have all my stuff ready to go. So let's take a look and see how fine-tuned we can get here. And the first thing I want to show you is how to create an orchestra live with one single instrument, or sorry, not one instrument, one MIDI channel. So we're going to go to Miroslav Philharmonic 2, and remember there are multiple ways to do this. We're going to go over all of them. We're just going to grab the live, the Orchestra Live, or is it Full Orchestra Live? It's expecting you to play it live, and it's going to use a bunch of different things. Notice all of the key ranges are all articulated very specifically for their instruments. You're also going to see, if we can, no, it's fine. So you can also see the ranges right here as well as over here, and you can click and drag those. You can type them in. Super easy. This is going to be the velocity ranges. So if you want to have, say, a quiet sound or only have these come up when it's loud, that's how they're doing that right there. So let's hear what this instrument sounds like. We'll start pretty low. And let's go all the way down. And that can give you a really powerful chord. I don't have that much room here on the tiny keyboard, but let's hear just a C major. Cool. So you can see how it's just a full orchestra all with one MIDI channel, super easy to use. I didn't need to use the crazy setup that I have back here, but it's very useful to have that setup because when you're writing, you don't necessarily want to have everything on one little one setup like this. So now let's start fresh. We'll go initialize. So now everything is fresh here, but we still have our MIDI tracks routed. Go back a little bit earlier if you missed that. Well, the first thing I want to do is I just want all my multis. And now you don't need to use the multis. You can use any of these different instruments that you want. Now what I'm going to do is just create like a quick 4-string cello, violins, let's go viola, and basses. So, let's go cello. And let's find our multi. So that's going to be channel 1. Now we'll go here, load instrument to channel 2. And remember, you can always pop that up with this little guy as well. You don't need the X arrow. So let's grab some violins. You can see 11 violin multi, but I just want one violin. I don't necessarily want a huge orchestra right now. I just want a little quartet. There's 4 little string players next to each other, and then from there we can do some little things like panning, which if you didn't notice, the presets in Miroslav Philharmonic 2 are pre-panned for you how they would be live with the Miroslav Philharmonic Orchestra. So, cello, violin. Let's grab our next one. We'll go viola. Sorry if I'm going in a weird order here. It'll all make sense in just a sec. Awesome. Now we're going to grab our bass. I notice I went Again, all with key switches, just so I can save space, use one single instrument, and then really expand its articulations from there. So there's our bass multi. Cool. So now let's check that out. So outside of here, we're going to call this our cello. We're going to call this our violin. Forgive me for any typos. Viola. Bass. Now we didn't need this 6th track. Now let's check that out. Let's see how it works. And if I wanted to trigger them all at the same time, now they don't all share exactly the same range, so it might not sound as awesome as that live instrument, but let's hear it. Cool. So you can hear them all triggering at the same time there. And now let's go back over that just to explain one more time what's going on just before we get to this giveaway here. Remember, it's going to be SampleTank 4, so you're going to be winning this awesome software to be creating all of your own music very shortly. And if you already do make music, this is going to be a supplement to all of your great tools that you already have. So that is our 4 multi-orchestral template. We're going to just save that. And what we're going to go over here again is just notice that there's MIDI channel 1 with our cello, MIDI channel 2 with our violin, 3 and 4, and that is going to be in our MIDI I/O setup. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. You'll notice one of the cool things about Ableton is when you put these guys down, you're going to see that 1, 2, 3, 4 also appears there. So it makes it really, really easy to kind of just navigate between all of your different stuff. And we're just going to keep this SampleTank right there. Now, let's say you love this, you're really cool with writing your performances, but then after you do this, you want to use T-Rex to mix it. We're going to set that up to expand on our template here, and how we're going to do that is the mixer in SampleTank. We're going to send this out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8. All I'm doing is clicking the input in the mixer section. You can open and close the mixer section with this guy right there. So once you have all of that routed, we need tracks for the audio to come back in on. Now, so we're just going to use these 4. And let's put them down there. What I like to do is group all my MIDI. Now, Control G is going to be a group, and all different DAWs have different ways of doing this. But I really like Ableton's way of creating music and being able to do this so quick. So we have our MIDI, we have our audio. So how do we set up these audio tracks? First, let's name them. You always want to make sure to properly name. Let's grab this. And we're going to send them all out. We're going to accept all of their input from SampleTank 4. We're going to turn them all into the input monitoring mode, which is going to allow signal to flow through them naturally without the record on button, which you can also use. Then we're going to go to output 3 and 4, like we saw for our cello, 5, 6, 7, 8, and let's go 9, 10. Now, some of you just watching, I accidentally mixed those up there. Now let's go ahead and fix that in SampleTank 4, and this should help further the understanding of what we're doing here. Okay, so once we're back into SampleTank 4, I keep double tapping. We're going to go ahead and we're going to set the audio inputs properly. So we're going back over that. We're going to send this to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10. So one thing, if you guys don't know about SampleTank, is there's aux tracks. And if you had a reverb here, which a lot of Miroslav Philharmonic templates do, you want to make sure this is also routed out somewhere, or one of your instruments is going to have a bunch of reverb and you're not going to know why. And that might be because you send it to out 1 and 2. So let's check that out. Let's see how our audio is flowing. Beautiful. So now let's say I wanted to, like I was just talking about reverb, let's throw some reverb on our cello, and before we save our template, just as a quick test. Or better yet, let's throw this on our insert. So what I did was I grabbed T-Rex Sunset Sound, and you don't need to use this reverb. You can use any kind of reverb that you want. Notice I had CSR on by default. That's just my Ableton template. Now, check this out. You have it here. This is going to be a nice little chamber wet reverb, and I'm not even going to touch it. Let's just hear how it sounds. You have your send right there. If you're in the mixer page, let's see where our send is right there. So cool. You have a nice little bit of reverb there, and you can use that for all your different tracks. Remember, if you're over here, you can change your record arm. We'll switch to this guy. Great, so that's a quick, easy way to just route all of your tracks. Now you have reverb on all of your different stuff from T-Rex Sunset Sound or whatever reverb you like. Now you can just save your set again. This is going to be your Orchestral 1 template. You could save this as Orchestral template 2, 3, 4. If you want to just create with one and then later expand into the audio, that's cool. It's all really useful to do. And when you do this, you also have subgroups, so you can compress all of your strings together, which might help control the dynamics of the full mix. Well, yeah, that's a bunch of different great ways to get started in using Miroslav Philharmonic 2 in SampleTank 4 or using any of the SampleTank 4 sounds. Which, if you guys aren't familiar, Total Studio 2 Max and SampleTank 4 Max are on sale right now for ridiculous deals. Make sure to go ahead and check those out. Link in the description. But let's go ahead and check out a couple more things about this to just give you guys some hints. And in just a couple of seconds here, we're going to be giving away SampleTank 4, so make sure to create an IK Multimedia account, and I will be asking a question in just a moment. So before we do that, and we'll do that in, let's say, 1 minute and counting, I'll ask the question. So make sure if you have any friends, get them in here so they can answer the question and possibly win SampleTank 4 to get their production started. So let's go ahead and check out one of these instruments. We're going to go to our cello multi. Now, every single instrument here does have macros, which are really cool. Expression, attack, release, filter, cutoff, start, low. Let's go to actually our violin. And if you want to select different instruments, you can press the number there. You can also press the number here. So let's go to our violin. Now, I'm going to flood it with a little bit of reverb because it's on its own. So, when you're using an instrument like this, you really want to use the expression control. The expression control is going to be from, think of it like a volume knob on your guitar, but a little bit like the string or the bow on the violin. So let's hear what that sounds like when I start messing with it. Cool. So you can see expression is going to give you that little bow, and you want to automate that. And if you're using a controller like this, I'm automatically set up. I didn't have to go crazy with my trackball. I do like it though. You give it a little bit of an extra vibrato on top of what's already there. Not vibrato, sorry, tremolo really. But expression, that's what it's called. That's how you're going to use it. Now attack is going to be, how long does it take for the full instrument to kick in? This is going to be way too long. This is going to take forever. Let's hear it. So if you have a slower song, slow that down. If you have a faster song, just have it kick right in. So check that out. And that's going to be really useful when it comes to really dissecting your sounds. What I'm going to do is start our expression slow. Let's go there. And then let's turn the release time up. It's going to let the string just kind of float off into the distance, instead of immediately disappearing once I let go of that key. Let's try it one more time. You can see how that just disappears immediately. So quick 3 tools to just get you way more life into your productions. And I went over these in a couple of other videos you might want to check out on SampleTank 4 and Miroslav Philharmonic 2. But let's go to the cutoff. I'll just show you what that does. It's the filter cutoff. It's where the filter starts. You can use that to take out some high end on the sound, and you can also EQ your sound right there and tell it where the sample is going to really start. So a bunch of really cool macro tools. You're going to have those for all your Miroslav Philharmonic sounds. If you do want to expand and go into the SampleTank 4 Max sounds, remember you have all of these great categories. Go to strings if you want. You can see now, this is actually a SampleTank 4 Max bass multi. I wasn't even using the Miroslav Philharmonic 2. I didn't even realize, because all these great sounds can blend together. Oh, I misspoke. It was in Miroslav Philharmonic 2. You can combine your filters there. The X button will clear them out completely. Well, let's see. Let's see if I wanted to grab a bass from here. You notice I have all these different basses to choose from, and you can kind of switch them through the filter, or you can type in the keyword. You can go a bunch of different ways. One of my favorite ways to organize is by acoustic and by, say, drums, bass, stuff like that. That's just kind of what I'm looking for in SampleTank, but of course you can do this any way that you want. And once you find a great sound, let's say you really like this metallic slide, you can favorite him and filter by just your favorites. Really easy to just find your sounds later and then kind of mess with them. Now, if you don't write MIDI, you're not a big MIDI guy, we have a bunch of different stuff in the Groove players. Check out our other demo on SampleTank 4 for how to use them, especially for strings. But if you like these, and let's say you like one of our strings from SampleTank 3 or Miroslav Philharmonic 2, and you like one of these strings, you can drag it right into your DAW. It's going to be a MIDI clip. So super useful. Let's undo that. Once it's in there, you're going to have intensity, you're going to have swing, you're going to have a bunch of different kinds of controls over your sound, which are going to be useful when just, dissecting everything and going super in depth. But yeah, let's go ahead and we'll touch on a couple of other topics here before we close out. Let's ask the quick question: what is your favorite sound in SampleTank 4? If you're not familiar, there's a full instrument list on the website. And if you haven't seen in this video, you just scroll back a little bit and you can name any of the instruments you saw on screen. Let us know in the chat box. We're going to be picking a winner at the very end of this episode, as we have in the last couple of these Tech Talks. So make sure to throw your answer and your username at the very end. We will be picking a winner at the end of the episode, but it might take some time for it to be added to your account. Remember, no extra steps needed. It gets added right to your account. Once we pick you as a winner, there's nothing you need to know from there. Just keep an eye out on your username. We're going to say congrats to you in the chat. And let's go ahead and touch these final little details here. And we'll wrap up and we'll announce our winner. So let's go ahead and go to our load instruments. You have all of your different categories here. If you want, you can organize them by text. You can organize them by icons. There is a folder view as well if you are a SampleTank 3 user. Now, this might take a second to load because it's pulling everything up together, but this right here helps me because I like to organize by the folders they're saved in, not necessarily by the category, because I'm really just looking for a very specific thing. I know what it is, and if I'm not using the search tool, I'm here. So that's a really useful tool. I've seen a lot of people who like to use these patterns, and a little tip here, not to go back and forth between different pages, but there is a master key. When you change this key, it does affect your patterns. So make sure to pick the key of your song and do it right. It's going to sound great. Some people were thinking that SampleTank 3 had more functionality than SampleTank 4 because that key was not quite in the same spot. But that's not the case. It's just up here. Go ahead, pick your key. That's C. You have any options there. There's your global tempo, which you can turn the sync off for. Global play, really useful tools. And of course, one last thing that any player needs, if you're going to be live, you're going to need a live mode, and this is going to load a bunch of different instruments through program changes. Notice here you can set a program change. Let's say we set program change 1. We can set it to any of our instruments. Well, let's go to Miroslav Philharmonic 2, and we'll even do a multi, not a single instrument, which is now possible. We'll go full orchestral live because I love that one so much. You can name your song. Ooh, testy. So once you name it, let's actually go with program change 1 loads the song, program change 2 loads the multi. So on your keyboard here, notice there's a little Alt button and you can change program changes. So we've now selected song 1 and it should be selecting Orchestra Live. Ooh, I'm not sending MIDI to the right channel. That's why. But essentially, that's how it works. Is you send program changes in, it's going to select your song, and then it's going to select your multi, and then you have master control over all of them. BPM, super easy, loads it all to your RAM, I believe, and then it helps you just load everything quick, fast, and easy. A couple of other, there's the keyboard section here and the pad section here. If you did want to, say, write some orchestral, like Tiffany, something like that, and you have a beat pad, which is really cool on the Keys IO25. But that's it, guys. So we're going to announce the winner in just a second. Thank you guys so much for staying tuned to the very end. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we're going to see you guys next week. We have a bunch of great content coming up, not just in the next week, but all next month. We're going to have a bunch of cool stuff. So make sure to stay tuned. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys next time.